Good evening and welcome to the Black Male Impact series. And we continue this conversation, leading with purpose and building legacy. Today we have an amazing guest, Dr. Tymon Graham. Dr. Graham, welcome to the Black Male Impact.
Thank you. Thank you.
Man, it's a pleasure. All right, for those who are here with us and those who have been tuning in with us, please, if you don't mind, please share this conversation. You're going to hear something today that can benefit you, and may not only you, can benefit someone in your that you are connected to. But before we get into more of the conversation tonight, and even before I talk more about Mr. Graham, I'm just going to, continue sharing, just for you to get a understanding of what tonight's conversation is about. So this platform was created to highlight Black men who are not only leading in their respective fields, but who are also shaping institutions, influencing systems, and creating pathways for others to follow. Tonight's conversation focuses on leadership within higher education, a space that requires not only strategy and vision, but also resilience, emotional intelligence, and the courage to navigate complex systems while driving meaningful change. We will explore how personal journey shapes leadership philosophy, how adversity refines decision making, and what it takes to lead organizational change in environments that are often restrained to it. So I'm just going to give you a short bio of Mr. Dr. Grimes. Sorry. Then I'll give him the opportunity to share more about himself before we get into tonight's conversation. Dr. Graham is a transformative and innovative higher education researcher, administrator, strategic planning officer, student affairs practitioner, retention specialist, and enrollment manager. And we know the importance of a retention specialist, especially when we sometimes lose some of the students who do have the potential, but they're coming from environments where they sometimes need an extra guidance to make it through their college experience. So, Dr. Graham, if you don't mind, please share more about yourself so the listeners can know you more before we get into this conversation tonight.
I'm an HBCU grad, and I'm proud of that. I went to South Carolina State University for my undergrad. I was heavily involved in student affairs and student life and SGA. And then I realized in the conversation that this could be something I do every day. And so that's what kind of led me in the path to student affairs. So I went to University of West Georgia for grad school, Benedictine University in Chicago for my doctoral program. And those experiences kind of shaped who I am. I've had the pleasure of working at PWIs, HBCUs, public institutions, private institutions, 2 year institutions, 4 year institutions. And I think one thing that I really valued, I really enjoyed, was that I was able to have some time where my career was not and is not singularly created and toned by an institutional on campus context. But then also, I spent some time at the Thurgood Marshall College Fund at the Payne Research Center doing research. So a nonprofit institution that's or a nonprofit organization that still has a direct impact with the higher ed space and the institutions and campuses. So all those have cultivated to where I am today. So I'm thoroughly enjoying it in South Florida. The weather is amazing. It's always a good place to be.
Man, it's great. And as you stated that, you were heavily involved in the student affairs part, even when you were a student. So it was more so an easy transition. And being that you were also part of the conversation and you know some of the needs of the students. And it's always great to have individuals who are passionate, to serve the students because it's one thing to have the degree. It's one thing to be in the space. But the thing that is most important, especially when it comes to serving students, especially students who sometimes are considered at risk, not because of cognitive ability, but sometimes because of what they have been conditioned to think about themselves. So it's important that someone like you is in that space to serve the students.
Yeah, and I'm grateful because I have the absolute pleasure of being vice president for student affairs at Florida Memorial University, and I get to do all of those things that you just said, all the things that I had and or students needed when I was in school. I get to deliver that to the students here, so that's one of the most amazing pieces.
Man, that's great. That's awesome. So I know this conversation is going to be good. So those who are here, again, please share this conversation with the people you are connected to. All right. Please share. It's going to be, a great conversation tonight. So my first question to you: how has your personal journey shaped the way you lead within higher education?
I think one in higher education, as you transition and you get roles and things like that, you take a piece of different institutions and a piece of the things that you did really well, a piece of the things that you didn't do so well, and you capitalize, you figure out what works. But for me, one of the foundational pieces is that I'm Southern raised, and I take that authentically with me into meetings. It doesn't matter what meeting it is, whether it's with students, whether it's with my team, whether it's in cabinet meetings. Everyone knows I'm Southern raised and I'm raised in the church, right?
Yeah,
So that shapes how I lead. I want to make sure I make an impact, but I also want to be compassionate to people because we're human and we have
correct.
lives, and life happens. I want individuals to grow, but I also then want them to stay the course. And I want people to feel comfortable in making suggestions in meetings, but we all leave on one accord. So for me, I lead from the seat of collaboration.
Correct.
In the South, we do family gatherings, right? Those are real events. Those are monumental events for us. So you dress the part. You're coming to eat. It's going to be good food, and I do that same thing with my team. So we have what we call family meetings or family gatherings. We don't have just division meetings. We have family time. That's what we call it. So it's fun, it's interactive, and we get to business. So that just like a family dinner or a family gathering, when Big Mama or Dad is sitting at the table, we have
Yeah.
fun, we eat some good food, but they're going to get to business if there's business at hand. So that's how I kind of try to lead.
Well, you said something really important, and it's a great reminder to all of us that not only what we learn and what work, but also what didn't work, and see how what we may need to change to be more effective. But not only that, too, being that you have worked in different places, and it's good to take some of those experiences to different environment, because sometimes what you bring, it is so unique because of your experience, and it can be beneficial to those you are working with, being that they may have not got the experience or experiences that you got. So I think sometimes, going into different spaces and having that experience, can really broaden your portfolio and your perspective, that can be beneficial to those who you now become a part of. And also, which is so important, you bring your authentic self. Being that you grew up in the southern part of the country, so you say, what, let me take that with me, and it's always great to take our authentic self in the places that we serve. And it's also not only that too, it's good to be in spaces that give you the opportunity to be your best self. Which leads me to my next question. What early adver advertis no, sorry. What early advert adversities, sorry. What early adversities or challenges strengthens your executive lens?
I can recall earlier in my career, I was a young director, right? I'm talking about 26-year-old director. And I was the director of of residence life. And I can recall being able to sit in the executive seats or in meetings with executives all the time. Not only was I young, but I typically in those spaces were the only black male in that space. So I think for me, early imposter syndrome was huge for me. It was real for me in my career. I didn't use my voice as much in rooms, but now if I'm in a meeting, I'm talking,
That's right.
and you're going to hear the southern. You're going to hear a man. It's like, come on now. So you're going to hear that I wasn't as collaborative. I think earlier in my career because I think I thought that if I produced the work and it was me, then I would get the praise. When the reality was, it's a collaborative effort. And I can recall the provost at one of my institutions when I was director said, "I can tell you didn't talk to somebody about this because they would have told you all of these things." So now I take those pieces and those challenges, and now I look at my work from more of a collaborative lens. Even now, it's not uncommon for me to have multiple people from different departments on an email or in a meeting because I think that collaboration is extremely helpful and other people's point of view is extremely helpful. I'm blessed to work in student affairs, and I think it's the most phenomenal job in the world, right? So every day there's a crisis, everything there's something new, every day there's a rapid change. So those things have strengthened and sharpened my executive lens. So later, the lessons that I learned when I was a director in South Carolina, I'm able to identify them early so that my team now is able to not stumble at that point, or my team is able to navigate around them, a little more efficiently.
Well, just listening to you sharing that experience, especially your earlier experience when the provost approached you and let you know that, I guess someone didn't tell you, but listening to you talking about your experience, it shows that you have been very receptive to the critique. If you don't mind, share a little bit about how important it is to be receptive to, especially to those people who want to see you do well around you.
Yeah, that's the part I think, especially with mentors and people that you report to and supervisors that want to see you do well.
Okay.
We're going to critique, not out of a place of harm, but to say, hey, you should do this and this is why. So my team I'll do stuff and it might be a long meeting, but I typically will tell a story because the story of how this has happened before gives a better view and a better picture of how they can be more successful. So when I'm saying, or a VP or someone saying, hey, look at it this way. Hey, make sure you're doing X, Y, and Z. And I can tell when you didn't, because 9 times out of 10, we've already seen this before, or we know what the end result should be, right? So taking heed to those things will be extremely beneficial in that moment, but also as a story to tell when you see someone else 5, 10 years down the line that is doing the same thing. You can say, I was in that seat, right? I identify with that, and this is how you navigate that.
Well, man, that is so important. And as you talk about using story, because sometimes that's how we as individual, relate to each other by sharing, not only the good part of the journey, but when we had to learn something. And I think that is so important to put ourselves in the shoe of the person, especially those we want to encourage and those who we want to support, and to make sure they navigate their journey effectively. Which leads me to my next question. When leading organizational change, where do most institutions struggle?
Um, Most probably struggle with collaborative communication. Um, Given that you're in a particular seat, right? And given that change is happening, collaborative communication is key because, and this challenge is not new, right? This challenge for institutions is not new. Uh, we realize that if people aren't involved in that process of change, they could be
Hmm.
more resistant, right?
Okay.
Um, in the event that there's change happening, I like to over communicate because at least if you over communicate and we're on the same We're thinking of the same vision, mission, and goals as a team. I've over communicated. I've involved you in the process. I'm collaborative in the communication. I'm transparent. At least if it's not what you want or your desired outcome, at least you didn't know. At least you were aware. At least you had a part in that process. And sometimes everyone doesn't come out 100% winner, but at least you can say that I was a part of this. I'm not caught off guard.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I just highlight. I think you made a point earlier about imposter syndrome. But once you do the work, you earn your space.
Yeah.
Sometimes we do the work, and even though we're in the space, as you said earlier, you have that imposter syndrome. I don't feel like I belong. But if you have done the work, you do belong in those spaces. All right. So I'm just going to continue. But as you were talking about, just sharing that those experiences, it is so important. But my next question to you is, how do you build trust during times of institutional transition or uncertainty?
Um, Trust is built by realizing we're regular people, right? Not losing the human touch, being transparent in communication. Because when change happens, and change will always happen, right? Uh, we're human. We're regular people.
Correct.
So the conversation with the regular person is extremely important. I tell my teams, it may not be the answer that you want, but I'm going to tell you the truth. So at
Correct.
least when my team comes and it may not the change is happening, well, why do we do this? Remember we talked about X, Y, and Z, mission, vision, values. We align with that, right? And so if we can do that and we make sure students are at the center, we'll be successful.
Well, man, that is so important. As you said, we should never forget the human side of things, or the human touch, or that we are talking to people, and that we may not have all the answers, and you may not like everything that you hear. But once you, as you stated, focus on dealing with people and dealing with people in the best way possible, I think that is so important. And because even if what we're saying, right, may come off as challenging, if the person knows that we respect them, I think they will still be more receptive. And I think that is really important, especially in those spaces of higher education, to treat each person that we talk to or talk with as a human first, which is so important when it comes to, especially when we want change and people to do the best that they can.
Right.
But let me ask this. Being that you are in the leadership role, have you ever have any resistance that you have to get helped the person to understand more clearly of what you're saying?
Absolutely. Sometimes resistance comes for a number of reasons. It may be that, and that's why it's important to know people,
Correct.
and important to get to know who they are, where their space is, how long they've been there, because some people hold to different pieces of a policy or of a procedure that we have, right? Because they created it 10 years ago. They created it 5 years ago. And we've been doing the same thing for 20 years and it's worked, right? But there's also a shift now. Just it's America, right? It's technology has changed. AI is here and it's not leaving, right? So as we
Correct.
begin to shift, and I say I put myself in that too. I'm a part of that too. So sometimes I want to see, and my team beats me up because I do paper, right?
Yeah.
So I like paper. If you give me a piece of paper, I'm gonna go through this whole thing. And my AVP says, Doc, you can just edit this like in the shared document. And I'm like, no, I can, but if I do this, this works. So some pieces are making sure people are comfortable in their space to be successful. But there's also the resistance when people are tied or married to one thing, and for various reasons. So understanding the person and the why helps to navigate those conversations of resistance.
Well, man, that is so important. But as you talk about, understanding the people, and actually, you yourself, you put yourself in the shoe, and that is so important as a leader. to know that, me myself
Mhm.
will sometimes resist what's happening. So it's not just you. I
Mhm.
too sometimes, especially if it is new to me, and it's always good to put that human touch into every interaction, because people have different experiences, but we, talking from experience and even understanding that it's so important that we see the people first as humans. So my next question to you is, what does purposeful leadership look like in complex academic environment?
Wow. The purposeful leadership is exactly what it is. It's a purpose. Why? It's the why. Why are we here? Why do we do this? It makes sure that everyone is aligned around the mission, vision, and values. And sometimes we have to help people realign and reprioritize the values, or reprioritize how we get to those pieces. So as a leader, being having your purpose, that why, that thing, right, being the center of everything, um, recenters everyone. But in every decision, like I said before, if you put the students at the core of every decision, that's the purpose. For me, the purpose is the student, right? So if I make sure that the student's at the core of every decision, then I'll be doing well. Some That doesn't mean that some decisions, you know, won't require me to do a little bit more work, but I know
Correct.
that my why and my purpose is to make it easier for the student to enroll, to be retained, to matriculate, and to eventually graduate.
Well, and that there comes the retention specialist piece again to make sure the students graduate. But as you stated, having a purpose and a purpose that ties to the mission and vision. It is so important, and that's with every organization, no matter where we are, having a purpose for being in those spaces. It is so important because I think once purpose drives you, it becomes easier for you to do the work that you love, because you know what? I know why I'm here, not because I'm getting a paycheck. Yes, the paycheck is good, but I want to see the students that I'm entrusted to serve become the best that they can be, or just to graduate, because every student that start a journey, that's their purpose, to graduate. And sometimes we know that students do come not fully ready, mentally, to graduate. But with that said, with students not being fully ready, and you showing up on purpose, and yes, you have done it because you have made it to the position that you're in now. But is there any story that or experience that stood out to you when it comes to your purpose and the students that you are serving?
Um, I talk about one student that I had all the time. Um, and he, I'm not going to say he was my favorite, but but everyone could tell this is my favorite, right? So when I was at an institution. His mom was there, and she met me at orientation, right? Move in, and say, here, my son is here. He's a black male. I need you to look out for him, right? And I I took it as something that was my job. My purpose are all the students, but I have an additional purpose to make sure that this student is successful, right? His freshman year, did absolutely amazing. He was an athlete, a wrestler, did absolutely amazing, right? Uh, Challenges came. He came, hey, this is my challenge. I helped him to navigate that, right? Year one, we checked that off. We get to year two, or the end of year one, and I said, hey, I think you should become or apply to be a student mentor, right? He said, I'll think about it. Didn't do it. For me, I I wondered, why didn't he do it, right? Because if the director is telling you, hey, you should apply for this, in my mind is I just want to see his application in, because I know what he can do, right? He didn't see it at that
Correct.
time. The next year, his junior year, or at the end of his sophomore year, he comes. He says, "I wish I had done this." And then he applied. I said, "Well, you should apply to be an RA." He applies to be an RA, does absolutely phenomenal. And every year, right? He's a wrestler, so he's on campus for Thanksgiving, on campus for breaks, right? Because that's in season for him. Now he gets to know my mom comes in town because I was managing the crisis if any crisis came up. I was on call for that, so now she's bringing food, right? Now she brings food. Him and his friends are, hey, you can come by, get some food, before you go back because it's Thanksgiving, right?
Yeah.
Um, the next year, he becomes an RA again. Still, absolutely blown away by his leadership. He becomes SGA president, um, gets his own car. It's a million things he does that continuously makes me proud, right? And it then turns at a moment that my mom is no longer asking me what I want for Thanksgiving dinner. She knows that I have this additional purpose, right? But
Correct.
my family is invested in the work that I do. And so she is now saying, "Hey, I know the wrestlers are there, and what do they want to eat?" So I have to deal with having no meat on Thanksgiving because they're on a vegetarian diet or they're doing X, Y, and Z. But I went with it because I understand that the purpose is for students to be successful. And in that moment, that was the student I had to make sure was successful. And today he's absolutely phenomenal. So he's that wise story every time of I know that what can happen and how a student's life can be transformed. Today he's built a house, has a wife, kids, I mean, living the life, right? In Florida, but I know that that purpose and that mission at that moment in time was to make sure him and by extension of him, his teammates and his friends successful.
Well, and that is good. And not only being that it's good, you were able to see what he could do, even though his mom said, look out for him. But when you can see the potential and encourage it, that is so important. And as mentors who are watching and who are here, once we see the potential in individuals, let's point it out and encourage it, because sometimes that's the spark that the young person or just an adult need to tap into their own greatness. I appreciate you sharing that story because it highlights the importance of mentorship. So, how do you balance data-driven decision with culturally responsive leadership?
Well, data driven decisions are just that, right? It's what the data tells us. The data tells a story, but the data doesn't feel. As humans, we feel, right? So
Correct.
when we look at how decisions impact students, we must look at it from a lens of um, how it feels and how we may find room for alteration or how we may find room for them to still be successful because the data could solve one problem and create a whole new problem, right? So if you look at me and I tell students and mentees and students that sponsor all these things, right? When I went to grad school, I had to take the GRE, and what the
Mhm.
GRE told the school was that I wouldn't be successful. Well, that clearly is not the case today, right?
Correct.
I graduated from grad school with a 3.9, but don't you
Wow.
know that that next semester, so I started in the fall, that next fall, the GRE was no longer a requirement
Wow.
because I was living proof of what someone could do if you gave them a shot, right?
Correct.
So I tell students all the time, give it a shot. You never know how things will end. But make sure you come with full force. So when you get the shot, take it. Take advantage of every piece of it. Because after I came, there were from South Carolina State, there were students the next year and the next year. There's a lineage of students that went to University of West Georgia from South Carolina State after I went.
Well, man, and sometimes, as you said, it's just to give it a shot, or just take that chance. And sometimes, as individuals, we have to prove to them that this does not determine who or what I achieve. You may think because this test say this, but as individuals, so and that in itself. can be very beneficial to help young people navigate their journey. Because again, they may have a bad experience and they may hold on to that experience and think that experience is who they are. And then you now become a proof that, look, this could be the experience, but this could be the end result. So you can determine either you're going to accept this right here, that low point that you have experienced, or you're going to say, you know what, maybe this over here is possible. But I also like the fact that you talk about the human part of it. The data cannot feel, but that human piece is so critical when it comes to serving. And it is so critical. And a lot of times, institutions focus solely on the data and forget the emotion, the part that it is so critical, especially if you're going to make the real connection with the students. Because you may look at data and say, this is it, but what may be the cause of that data? And that's where understanding the culture, what's happening, the bottom line of the whole experience of what's happening in those spaces. I really appreciate that perspective because it's a great reminder, not only for educational institutions, but in all institutions, because we do forget sometimes the human piece of every experience, which leads me to my next question. In your experience, what prevents meaningful organizational change from taking root?
People,
People.
period. People. People could be tied to a practice or, like I said earlier, procedure that they created, so they're married to it. And now times change; they continuously change every day. So we have to adapt and change with that. I tell people, I was working with a team and we were talking about our org chart, and they said, "Well, this is how it should be." And I said, "Well, org charts all work until you put people in them. Then you deal with the personalities, you deal with the quirks of people, you deal with their particular work, that you deal with whatever they bring to the space, right? So it works just like an org chart. It works until you put people in it. So as you look at change, people hold back the change, or people accelerate the change. So it all comes down to people.
Well, yes, and again, not everybody would be willing to take change, you know, adapt to the change. And so the short answer to that is people, and sometimes it's just to get those you're working with to see things from a different perspective. Because yes, sometimes we hold on
Mhm.
to what we believe, and even when what we believe may not be working as how we would want it to work. That is just straight to the point, and all of us as individuals sometimes have to just look at what we're doing and see how things can be better, even if that means challenging our own old belief. So I appreciate that perspective. How do you navigate resistance, especially when challenging long-standing systems, similar to kind of aligned with the first last question?
Another simple one: relationships. Relationships matter. They matter in your success, they matter in the day to day. It may take a few conversations to get to know someone, but once you get to know someone, you understand where they're coming from, you understand their tone. I was actually talking to someone on campus, and she said, "Well, when you got here, I met you, we had conversations, we spoke, we got to know each other." And so if I send an email, or because emails don't have a tone, right? If I send an email, she knows that it's not, if she thinks it may be offensive, it's not, right? So she'll pick up the phone and say, "Hey, you said this." I was like, "Yeah, you know." And so it's a different tone, but it's because the relationship is there. So the relationships matter in success. And when things are changing, you leverage those same relationships in the change. So you're changing a long-standing system. Your goal and mine is to figure out how we both win in this. But I rely on the relationship, and when you have the relationship, it's more open. and the communication flows differently. So that's the big part.
Man, that is so important. Relationship, because that is going to be so critical. The people you connect with and build with in those spaces, because if there is no relationship between those you're working with, it can make things difficult. And in those spaces, which is a service-oriented space, the relationship is critical because again, no matter how driven, how knowledgeable, it's always going to take working with others to make the work more effective. So that's a great reminder when it comes to serving in those spaces, having the right relationship or building the right relationship. And also, you said something that is really important. How can we both win at doing this work? Because it's not just me and it's not just you, but how can we win as a collective? Because that's what it boils down to. Because once I tell people, when we're in those spaces, because if I do well and I'm working with you, then we both looks good. So it might as well let's work together and see the best way that we can do this work to make sure we are not just effective, but make the best or create the best environment possible. So, which leads me to my next question. And if you have something that you want to follow up, please do interject, paying attention. So especially on the areas that you have that passion and want to share something else. So which leads me to my next question. What role does emotional intelligence play in leading through adversity?
Um, it's critical because emotional intelligence, it builds your self-awareness. It creates the space for empathy, but it also is relational and builds trust. So when you look at emotional intelligence, and let's take the crisis piece. Like it's incredibly important in crisis because as a leader, you must manage your emotional intelligence and use it to help and guide the team. So, for example, a leader is in crisis, and that leader, or a good leader, will do three things: they'll absorb chaos, they'll project calm, and they'll give hope. So your emotional intelligence with the people that are around you allows you to enact those things. So if you're leading a team and you deal with chaos, because we all will, the cooler heads always will prevail. So some of my colleagues at different institutions tell me how calm I am in different scenarios, and it's because as a leader, you being tapped in and tuned in with the emotional intelligence is a must because all eyes are on you all the time, and you set the tone as the leader. So I very rarely get mad or yeah, I don't. It's
Frustrated.
just not me, right? Because I can't do that. The calm has to happen because my team relies on me for that, and I have to show up every time. I don't give an opportunity to not show up. So the emotional intelligence and you showing up as a leader is are critically important.
Well, man, and thanks for that reminder. Because as leaders, yes, you're right. People are watching, and if you are acting frustrated, if you are, too troubled by what's going on, then the people around you that you are entrusted to serve may start to lose it as well because their leader is, like don't know where to go and start getting frustrated under pressure because there will always be pressure. But how we deal with those pressures, that's what makes a difference. As you said, being aware not just only of the situation, but also of the people around you, because they're always watching. And being emotionally intelligent, it is so important because first, it's about you. How do I deal with these situations? Yes, some people can be calmer because naturally they may have cultivated that tolerance to deal with pressure. but there are individuals who may not, and it's always good as a leader to understand, but also to project that type of firmness in situations that becomes challenging. Which leads me to my next question: how do you ensure equity initiatives move beyond statements and into structural impact?
um, make it what you live every day, right? If it's your truth, you those initiatives are who you are.
Correct.
And if you can make those things that are important to you what you live, then it will be an automatic implementation. I can remember probably in when I was an assistant director and even a director of residence life, we would do RA selection. And my goal and what I tasked the team to do is you're gonna have a number of people, right? And you can pick a number of people to be an RA, but I want a group of RAs that at least one student, a student can see themselves in at least one RA, right? So it's not just what we say, it's how we are, it's how we act, it's how we put it into play. Because I wanted an international RA, right? I
Okay.
wanted a male RA, I wanted a female RA, I wanted an athlete, I wanted every facet of the institution. Was important to me to be seen on my staff, because students are then able to see somebody and be able to go to that person, right? um, in a really long time, I was one of the directors that said, I want a freshman. Like, I held a spot for a freshman RA, right? So after your freshman year, usually people became first year mentors and then they became an RA their junior year. I said, no, freshmen need to realize that I can be a leader early.
Correct.
I don't have to wait until later. I can be a leader, and I can lead with compassion. I can lead with trust. So all those things of what they wanted to see, I wanted to make sure they saw too.
Well, that's great. That's great. And and just to stick a pin on the importance of, making sure the environment is diverse and giving everyone an opportunity to shine and to lead is so important. But I just want to acknowledge a few comments. Have been popping up some comments. There are so many comments here in the comments area. So I'm just going to acknowledge a few, and then we're going to continue on the conversation. Rakeem Stevens, leadership really is revealed in transition. It is easy to lead when things are stable, but guiding people through uncertainty, when with clarity and purpose, that's where real impact lives. So it ties to what you shared earlier. And so I didn't get to highlight when you were making the point. So I just want to acknowledge a few here. I agree completely. I think a point that you have made, you don't have to become your environment mentally, especially. You were much more than your surrounding. I think you were talking about that experience you had and stuff like that. And here from Natalie, I agree with Dr. Graham. People are often what determines whether change happens. They can either hold it back through resistance and fear, or accelerate it through action and accountability, which is so important. And a comment here by Willis Plummer. To facilitate change in any organization, it's important to emphasize your personal strength and how it will impact. To change, the change is a positive way. So it's important to know your people and how to place in the position to be successful. So it's important to know your environment and know the people when you're serving. That goes back to that piece that you were talking about with the emotional intelligence.
And you also have to realize that you don't know everything, right?
Correct.
You sit in a seat and you see it from your view. There was a group that I started when I came here, and it's a committee that changes, right? So I was very clear of it not being any AVPs on the committee, right? I was very clear of it not being directors on the committee. I wanted assistant directors, area coordinators, especially all those on the committee, because they get to see students in ways that I don't see. And a lot of times they see how this sometimes how the work really happens, and they give us views of things that I may say, no, we just do X, Y, and Z, and it can be done very quickly. And they say, well, hold on. I tell them, they'll say, hold your line. This is actually what happens, and this is what I need to do in order to do that. And I'm good with doing that. But instead of this being done in 30 minutes, I'm going to need a day. Instead of this being done, in a day, I'm going to need a week because I need to get these other pieces to fall in place. And I may
Okay.
never have never known that. So the people and the teams are what really keeps things going, and they help the whole organization to be successful.
Well, I think you just share a valid point. It's not about rushing it. It's about getting the best work done possible. And
Right.
sometimes as a leader, that is so important because you find some leaders at times just want to go ahead and do it, and you need to do it in X time. And sometimes you may not get the best work, but you want to get done. And and sometimes you don't give the people enough time to really see the broader scope of what even needs to be done, and to be that type of leader who can give them that autonomy
Hmm.
to come up with the best solution, the best perspective, or the best insight, actually motivates those individuals. All right. So my next question to you is, what strategies have you used to mentor and develop emerging black male professionals in higher education?
Well, one, like I said before, I remember being a 26-year-old director and the only black male at the table, right? I
Correct.
was welcome, but I also want to increase that. And so I try to give opportunities for black males, but for all my team, but I can see myself in some people. So I want to give unique opportunities. And we talk about stretch assignments sometimes. So I know you don't know how to do this, right? But I want you to work with me so that we figure out how to do this and how we pull other people to use our resources. And you get to have a different experience that you can talk about 10 years down the line, 5 years down the line. So I try to give assignments, stretch assignments. I try to put them in seats where and in meetings where it may not be your job, right? But you get to learn another aspect. I remember my financial aid team. We were working through a challenge, right? So I brought in somebody from admissions, and I said, "Hey, I need you to sit here because I need you to do this, and I need you to learn this, and I need you to be a part of this process. And you may not do this process ever, but you'll be able to articulate it, and you'll understand why it's important to this particular team." So now he can walk away from that meeting and go 10 years from now, encounter the same challenge and says, I already know what to do. I know who to call. I know what to do here. So it's me as a strategy for me, one, putting people in different places to be successful, giving them assignments that stretch out of their normal capacity, but also just being honest, being real with them and saying, hey, absolutely phenomenal job. Now, think about doing this next time. How do you do X, Y, and Z? So, molding, um, facilitating growth are all things that I try to do because those are the things that happen to me. So, where would I be if it weren't for my mentors and the people that poured into me to be successful and gave me the stretch assignments, made me do things that I did not want to do, but it had a bigger purpose. And now today, I'm able to use those things or build or pull from those experience to navigate different waters or simply know who to call because I don't know everything, right? Uh,
Correct.
I'll come in my, it'll be a challenge and I'm working at it, we're working at it, and I'll come in my office, close the door, let me make this call. Okay, now I'm back. This is what we're doing, right? So creating that network of support.
Well, as you said, and I'm going to get to the network of support, which is so important, but it also said, you provide those stretch assignment. And I think those are really critical, especially when you see potential in those you want to mold to become the best version of themselves. Especially for black male navigating this space. Sometimes, they are the first in their family to step into those leadership role or to even navigate the space that they're in. And sometimes we may settle for just this is what I want to do. But when they get those stretch assignment, they may tap into more of what's been dormant, not knowing they have that leadership capacity within. And I think that is so important. But also, just being in an environment or around people that want to see you do better, which is so critical. So it's getting those stretch assignment is great, but around people who want to see you win, it is so important for you to become the best version of yourself. But as you talk about network of support, and as black males, I think that is something that we have to pay attention to and see the real value in it. Because we know sometimes to navigate whichever environment we're in, it can be difficult, not knowing all the answers too,
Right.
because sometimes it's not knowing what to do can trip us up when we're in some spaces. So it's to build those relationship and connect with those people who can provide the blueprint to navigate the space that we are in, which is so important as we navigate our journey forward. Which leads me to my next question: how do you protect your um, well-being while carrying the weight of leadership responsibility?
I have a circle of friends and family that really don't care that I'm a doctor. They could care less. They don't call me that unless they're trying to be funny. They call me by my first name, and they check on me, genuinely check on me. I don't know if they have a group chat without me in it, but if I ever feel the weight for some reason, it's God. I see the check-ins happening, right? Um, but in addition to that, it's just personal, mental health that matters, right? So traveling, family, friends that genuinely know me, allow me to really be in a good space. I talk to my mom every day,
Wow.
and every I will not go to sleep without talking to my mom every single day. So I could fly all day long, and it could be the 24 hours could pass, and it could now be 2 in the morning. I'm calling her phone, and it will ring, and she will answer the phone, even if she stays on the phone. Just say, "Hey, you're good? Yes, I'll call you in the morning." So those spaces of being safe spaces at that are critically important. Uh, Traveling just to is just something I like to do, and Amazon gets my money, so so those pieces allow me to step away, take care of me, but then at the same time rejuvenate to come back.
Well, I think you said something that is really important. Having the people who genuinely care about you, not your position, not your role, not what you have accomplished, but you as a individual. And but that it says even more than just making you being you, because sometimes when you achieve at a certain level, there are some people who stepped away because ascended. And to have those people, despite your growth, despite your success, despite what you have accomplished, to still stay there and support, it speaks volume. Maybe I don't know if it's on your part that you keep in touch with them, or them just want to be there for you, because sometimes and you hear this a lot, when people start to grow, people start to step back. They think maybe they are not good enough, but that is a testament to those who are listening. Look, if your friend or the people you are close to started to grow, it doesn't mean you should think of yourself less, because those genuine friends, those who know you, like really know you, it's important sometimes to have those conversations with those grassroots people, because it also keeps you grounded, despite your growth. And as you share, you talk to your mom, and we know we can only have one mom. We can have mom-in-laws and stepmoms and stuff, but we can only have one mom and stuff like that. So it's important that
Yeah.
we show love to our mothers, especially for some of us who may have grown, grew up with our mother alone and stuff like that. So, but it's good to just hear you sharing, your experience and how you have those people to help keep you grounded, because the journey can take a lot, especially with your role as a VP comes with a lot more responsibility.
Yeah, I've had the same best friend, one of my best friends, since I was 10 years old.
Wow,
We've done everything together. So he knows who I am as a person. All everything I've accomplished, he's there to celebrate. That doesn't matter to him. It's am I okay? Are you good? Do you need anything? And when I come home, we don't need to go. We're going to get regular food. Like it's I'm a regular person. So, and I think for my friends and even my colleagues, who are turn friends or friends that turn colleagues that are in higher ed, we're regular people. And when we're in formal spaces, yeah, we may use formal titles, but it's not about the title. It's not about the position. We genuinely have fun. We genuinely care about each other, and we genuinely want each other to be successful.
man, that is so important. Yes, so important, and that's a great reminder to everyone that's here and everyone who is listening. All right, let's not let the positions change us for one, but also don't let because someone in a position or have grown, you think you are less than. Those connections are still valuable, especially when the journey gets tough and you have to lift heavy loads. Having the people who can keep you grounded, it is so important. So my next question to you is, what lesson have setbacks taught you about institutional power and progress?
Um, this too shall pass. Um, period. When things are
Right.
going well, this too shall pass. Because you will get to a point where things may not be going well. And you have to adjust and you have to change and you have to pivot. And then when things aren't going well, this too shall pass too. So when things aren't going well, the sun will come out in a minute. Just hold your line, navigate the waters, and you navigate them with the people that you're with. So institutional politics happen, institutional policies change, leadership changes, things happen across the institution, which are external or internal, right? But I stand firm in that this too shall pass. And if we hang to that and to our relationships because they matter, we'll be successful. We'll be able to navigate those.
Man, that is so important and a great reminder. This too shall pass. There are things that we will not be able to control. So it's important to remember this too shall pass. And I think that will also, help to stay focused and not dwell too much on the things that we cannot control. Because sometimes there are going to be things that we cannot control. And as you said, policies change, leadership perspective changed, and sometimes it's also giving you an opportunity to tap into more of what is possible for you. But if we dwell too much of what's happening, oh, I don't like this, and whatever, I'm going to do whatever it takes. But sometimes, is to understand that maybe now you are being channeled into something even greater, something that you may not be thinking about. So it's important. As simple as that perspective is, something that we must remember, especially when the journey get tough. This too shall pass. I appreciate that perspective, and I know the listeners here appreciate it as well. So my next question, and we're getting close to the end of tonight's conversation, and it's been going great. I still have some comments that I'm going to go over in a minute before we get to the last questions. Few questions, but my question to you is, when you think about legacy, what do you hope remains long after your title changes?
Um, I used to think that if you go to a place and you do really good things and you leave, and young leaders and younger leaders and even older leaders, they sometimes may think this, right? This was my, it used to be my thought. If you go to a place, you do really good things, and when you leave, they can't operate without you. That's so much. They needed me. Like I was such a value to the organization, right? But the reality is, you have to lead past your years of service. So I talked to student leaders about this, SGA presidents about this, colleagues about this, leading past your years of service. My success and the legacy and what I want at any institution that I'm at or organization that I'm at is that when I leave, it still stands and it's going strong. Like it's still moving light years fast and they're building upon that. So leading past your years of service is the legacy. If every institution that I've been at, my hope is that when I left it better than when I
You
arrived.
found it. Okay.
Right.
Well, that is so good. That is so good. That is so good, and that's a great perspective to have as a leader, going into spaces to make it better than how it was given to us. And I think if we approach every opportunity from that perspective, yes, again, you're going to be dealing with people. Even if sometimes you want to do the best you can, you may not get the opportunity because you may get pushback. But the goal is always to go in those spaces with the mindset to make things better than we found it. And I think that's a great reminder to every single one of us here that's on a journey. And as you talk about, legacy, it's just beyond, the time that you spent in those spaces. What's going to outlast you, what they will talk about after you left that space. What did I do that makes a difference that they will talk about. Even if I'm somewhere else, they're going to say, you know what? Oh, Dr. Graham did this, or Dr. Cross did it this way, and stuff like that. That is so important, and it's great that we keep that in mind to make things better. But before we get into my last question, I still may have more than one question, but where can the listeners, support you and the work, that you're doing? I know you mentioned where you are and stuff like that, but how can, especially those who are in that space that you are in, can support you with the work that you're doing for the students that you serve?
Oh, send students to Florida Memorial University. That's the one thing that doesn't cost anything, right? To share our story of being the hometown HBCU, right? That's in South Florida that has access to a number of opportunities for students that they may have not seen anywhere else, right? We are literally in Miami, and sometimes people say, "Oh, you live in Florida," and to the people in Miami say, "No, I live in Miami. It's its own space," right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we have a number of academic programs, a number of student wraparound services so that students are successful, a number of engagement opportunities for students, a number of programmatic opportunities that this is literally the prime place for a student experience. If you want to have the ideal student experience with administration that cares about you, with students that love where they are, that care about the institution, with alumni, faculty, and staff that's so into students, this is the place. So if you want to support the work that we're doing, send a student, help to tell our story positively because those things matter. And of
Well,
course, give. Give. You can give financially, your talents, all those things, but giving a student impacts a lot as well.
well, that's great. That's great. Yeah, I've looked at that institution sometime in the past. There were some things that really stood out to me. I can't recall right now, but it was an institution that I really looked into. I don't know if it was because of the leadership that someone told me about. I think it was the president at the time. That I was looking at that institution. But thanks for sharing that, and to the listeners, you heard what you can do to support, Dr. Graham and the students that he served. And he always said, you can give to help students, and students always, can benefit from the gifts that this institution receive. So my final question, and I may have one more, but let me ask this question. What advice would you give to aspiring black male leaders to create leaders seeking to create change within higher education systems? Let me ask the question again. What advice would you give to aspiring black male leaders seeking to create change within higher education systems?
Um, I think a few things. One, be credentialed. Um, have the knowledge and the education so that you're credentialed in spaces so no one ever questions why you're in the space. You own your seat at the table. With that, always be a learner because things will change all the time. So never think that you don't have to learn anymore. Use your voice because it matters, and also find yourself relatable and friendly. You can be super smart, but no one cares if you can't relate to them. And if you want to be a friend, then find yourself friendly. And those things matter. So as you grow and come up in leadership, be credentialed, continue learning, uh, give back, use your voice, and be relatable and friendly.
Well, thank you for sharing that. That's something that we all can take note on. Especially when we want to grow, when we want to get into other spaces. And as you said, it doesn't matter how much you know. You should continue to learn and show up in spaces and be relatable to those people that you are around. But do you have any advice for not just aspiring black male leaders for education, but just for young people listening, or just for anyone? What message would you like to share with them before we end this conversation tonight?
Explore every avenue and every opportunity because you never know when an opportunity will be a learning moment for you, when an opportunity will lead you to your next, or you may revisit the opportunity later. One of my opportunities that I had was to work at a research center. And as a student affairs practitioner, I had my doctorate, so I did my dissertation and we did research and things like that. But to every day to look at research, and how it impacts institutions, how it impacts students, uh, to look at research and grants and see how to attain them. Those are things I typically would have never done just following the ranks of student affairs or as deep as I did. So now it's another set of tools in my toolbox because I tapped into an experience and wasn't afraid of an experience that I'm now able to use today and in the future. So for any young leader, black male leader, as you aspire, never be afraid to, one, as I said earlier, take on the stretch assignments, but two, really lean and tap into new opportunities or new experiences because you never know where they will lead.
Man, that is so important, and that's a great reminder to everyone. Take on those opportunities, take on the challenges, so you can grow. All right. So as we come to close with tonight's conversation, I want to leave us with this reflection. But first, I want to say thanks for you sharing your perspectives and your insights and knowledge with everyone's here. So this reflection, leadership within higher education and any institution is not simply about maintaining systems. It is about having the courage to transform them. True leadership requires more than knowledge and strategy. It requires clarity of purpose, emotional discipline, and a commitment to creating opportunities that extend beyond our own tenure. Conversations like this remind us that leadership is shaped by experience, strengthened through adversity, and measured by the impact we leave behind. This is what the Black Male Impact represents, highlighting leaders who are not only navigating systems, but who are actively working to improve them for future generations. Thank you for joining us tonight. We appreciate your insight, your leadership, and your commitment to making a difference. I know we still have a few comments here on LinkedIn, some that I have overlooked. Um, but here another comment on LinkedIn, which points out a point that you have made. But for those who are here, with us, I just want to say thank you, and thanks for joining tonight's conversation. The goal is always to bring guests here that we believe will share insights, perspective, and knowledge that we all can benefit from. The Black Male Impact is where positive changes are inspired. I just want to thank Mr. Graham again for being the guest for today, for sharing the knowledge that he brought to us. And, we're looking forward to having more guests. And for those who are here, if you know someone that we should bring here to share their perspective, their insights, and their knowledge, please share that information with us so we can either reach out to those individuals so we can have them a part of the conversation. Thanks again, and I'll be looking forward to continuing this conversation.